the officer tells him, well, we're getting a rape kit and so on, and they keep pressuring him. So then he goes back and meets with the girl, and the cop tells the girl, hey, we've done a rape kit. We know that you were sexually assaulted and whatnot. Well, she has no memory. Well, if a police officer tells you you were sexually assaulted based on a rape kit, you would believe that, would you not? I mean, that's really obvious. And so Purdue expels this kid, and he gets arrested for rape. He'll get 6 to 20 years.
My name is Ashish, and in 2020, I have a goal to tell 100 stories. In order for me to do that, I started a production company called Storyventure. Go to growwithstory.com and follow the journey alongside me. Brett, good to have you on.
Hey, good to be here, Ashish.
I am really excited to have you on, and here's why. You are one of the first people I remember working for out of college, and I just have a lot of respect for what you do, primarily because I think what you've done with your business is incredible, and I do what I do today partially because of your inspiration and just seeing how cool of a business you've set up and the tactics you've used to get it to where it's at. So before we get into all the details, though, introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Brett Gibson. I'm a criminal defense attorney in Lafayette, and I started this business in June of 1999, so it's been over 20 years. And we've now represented clients in 82 counties. And our criminal defense work, that's included everything from minor consuming to people charged with murder and whatnot, and everything in between. And I've also handled a lot of jury trials. We've won several jury trials all over the state and whatnot. And my path to sitting here with you, you mentioned my business. I still remember coming to Huntington University because I wanted to share what we could do with a lot of people, and came to Huntington looking to hire a film student, and ended up choosing one named Ashish, and here we are today.
Yeah, I think there's so much I learned just by working with you, specifically on, well, you were one of the only business owners that I knew of that understood marketing, really understood the tactics behind it. And I do want to get there at some point. But right before we get there, tell me about your journey to becoming, to starting Gibson Law Office. Talk me back to what made you want to be a lawyer?
Well, it's funny because when I was in high school, my dad was doing a lot of business in Europe, and he had talked to me about possibly being a lawyer and doing business transactional work. And so when I got out of Indiana University School of Law, that's what I did. I did business work and transactional work and estate planning, and never would criminal law have been on my radar at that time. But when I was in my late 20s, I had a friend who got arrested with some marijuana, and I was like the lawyer guy they knew, and I'd never handled a criminal case, but I was like, yeah, I can do that. And ended up handling the case. The guy's not convicted of anything. And I'm like, man, this is fun. This is exciting. And then that led to that guy referring to me another friend, and started getting involved and interested in criminal work, and just found a passion for it. It's real life. It's real things going on. It's people's rights. And so as I continued to build the business, started trying cases, I got on a hot streak of jury trials where I won several in a row, and I was like, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And the love of it, the competition, the relationship that you develop with a client, it's a powerful driver that I didn't get in civil work and whatnot. Because when you represent someone in a criminal case, they're coming to you at a trying time. Okay, it matters. Other than death or disease, this may be the most serious thing that ever happens in this person's life. And so the stakes are high. And then the process of analyzing the facts and doing research and developing strategy, it's like watching the movie A Few Good Men. I mean, it really is. It's dramatic, it's exciting, it's fun, and it matters. And so I went from, corporate transactional work and licensing and things like that into becoming a trial lawyer. And that's all I've done the last more than 15 years, close to 20 years. I've only handled criminal defense cases.
That's really cool. See, I don't know your story. So From that point when you realize that I've got a real passion for this till today, because back then you were just you. Today you have lawyers who work under you. So talk to me about that growth, getting to this point. What did it take?
Well, it took several factors, because I wanted to limit myself to criminal defense and focus it. But when I first started doing this, things like we take for granted now, like Google and iPhones and smartphones and cloud technology, didn't exist. And so you were somewhat limited geographically to practicing in a certain area. But as those things evolved, as Google search evolved, as we had ways to communicate with clients electronically, I realized, we're providing a great service. We can do this anywhere. We can handle cases in Muncie, in Bloomington, in Indianapolis, and these rural counties in between by using technology. And how do we let them know we're here? Well, part of that is online search and understanding that. And then, the biggest thing with handling a criminal case is communicating with the client. And legal representation, it's a service, it's not a place, okay? And so for a lot of people, I've won jury trials that are 2 hours. We have 4 offices around the state. I've won trials 2 hours from any of them. People say, well, why would somebody hire you that far away? And I'm like, because they want somebody who's coming guns blazing, who's going to work the case. They want somebody who cares, that can do the service. And so they're hiring the service, not where we're at. And a lot of people, when you think of criminal defense work, what you're envisioning are those moments in the courtroom. But that's not really where most of the time is spent on a case. And so what happens in a criminal case is when we're hired on a case, we file a document electronically with a court that says, hey, we're the lawyer. That triggers us electronically receiving all the evidence in the case. So you don't, in the old days, you had to physically go. Now that happens electronically. So I have a lawyer account. Any of the 92 counties, I immediately download the police reports, the discovery, the evidence. I have it. And I think one thing we've done, which is a big competitive advantage over other people, but also a way that really serves our client, we have a cloud-based client portal. And so our clients have electronic access to their file at our office. It also gives us a way to instant message each other, share documents. So literally the second I have the police reports, the client has it. They're reading it, giving me feedback via the client portal. We're going through it, identifying, what evidence is there, what additional work needs to be done. And so whether a case is directly, literally across the street from our office, or whether it's 2 hours away, the same process is taking place. If our Lafayette office is hired on a case that's in Lafayette, we're literally, across the street, literally, we still file it electronically, communicate the same way. And so in all 92 counties, the process is the same. Since Indiana went to e-filing over the last 18 months, it really fell right into our business strategy, because a lot of so-called hearings are handled electronically. So in a lot of cases, you're only physically going to go to court 1 or 2 times, even on a big case. The real work is going to happen, in our office, whether it's here, whether it's somebody working in Anderson or Fort Wayne or Bloomington. They're doing the same thing. And the attorneys in our office are collaborating via the cloud. So, today I was talking to Megan about a case. She's in Anderson. I'm in Lafayette. We have access to the exact same file in the cloud. We have the client communication right there in our client portal. And so we're able to collaborate. So now you're getting the team working on the case regardless of where you are. And so I think technology has just been a game changer for our practice and for our clients.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think was my misconception earlier on, especially when it comes to service businesses similar to yours. You look for place first, then expertise, whereas you've kind of flipped that on its head. You are niched down in the criminal defense area in a criminal defense niche, and you're everywhere because of technology.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. Service businesses. I started this in Lafayette. We have 4 offices across the state. Our bookkeeper is in Colorado. The firm that maintains our website is in Michigan. So we have, our vendors are all over the place, and the people who runs our phone services in Noblesville and whatnot. And I've really used that same philosophy in building our team, because for many years when I need to hire lawyers, I tried to hire by the same mentality of a lot of people old school. I tried to hire lawyers to come to the office location. So for example, in Lafayette, hey, we need another lawyer in Lafayette. I tried to post jobs and get these lawyers to move to Lafayette and live to Lafayette, where some of the young ones wanted to be in Indianapolis. Some of the experienced ones had ties somewhere else. And so it led to turnover. We'd bring in lawyers, get them trained, they're doing an awesome job, but they're not from here. They don't have that pull, or they wanted to be somewhere else. And Megan Bolt's a good example of that. She started working in our office right out of law school, but she grew up in Anderson, has deep ties there, family, friends, wanted to move to Anderson. And so she went back there to be a deputy prosecutor, and then cloud technology changed everything, because she was a rock star lawyer in our Lafayette office that was no longer with our firm because of geographically where we're located, not because she didn't have a great experience, fit in with us well. And so a little more than a year ago, I approached Megan and said, hey, we're cloud-based, we can do this. I'm starting to look at things. You can actually live in Anderson. We'll just open an office here, and you can still work at our office. And so I realized, wow, we can bring back rock star talent who are great lawyers and break the mold. Why do I care where you're working or living? What we care about is doing great work, giving our clients the best lawyers. And so now we hire the best lawyers to handle the cases, not the lawyers who will live in a certain town and whatnot. And so, the same mentality as clients start breaking free of, I'm going to look to shop for clothes. You don't go to the mall very often anymore. You go online because you want the best clothes, or the ones that fit your taste, or the best price, or whatever the differentiating value is. Well, law's the same way. If you're charged with a crime, you want a rock star lawyer who's going to fight, who has experience, who's been there, who's going to communicate with you. That doesn't need to be a person in your town. It used to be, maybe, but no longer. And I think the other really thing we've embraced that's really benefited our client is how we communicate. Because a lot of times, we represent a lot of college students, but also a lot of young people. A lot of times, their parents or close family members who are giving them support, they might live in another state. We might represent a Purdue student and the parents live in California or even another country. So via our cloud-based portal, obviously with the client's consent, if they want the parent to know what's going on, or a close family member, they have access to that file too. They can instant message me. I can let them know, hey, I just sent Billy this message. Here's the status of the case. Here's what's going on. Because there's a lot of anxiety for everyone in the family when there's a criminal case going on. And so by embracing technology, we're able to communicate with the client, with their parents, so everybody knows what's going on. They get feedback. I'm not forgotten and whatnot. And so you can hire a lawyer in your own town that doesn't return your calls, that's not responsive, but sure, they're 3 miles away. Or you can hire somebody who's going to communicate with you in a modern way that works for you. Very few times in your life right now are you going to go physically drive somewhere to speak to anybody. I don't care if it's an accountant or a lawyer or whatever. The exception would be obviously your dentist. You're going to go see them. And so I think technology has really enabled us to serve our clients in the best way we're capable.
Yeah, that's, again, one thing that I noticed while working for you is just how quickly you are willing to adapt to the latest technology to serve your client base, which is, again, I think goes to show why you have thrived why you've done so well with your business. Talk to me about your marketing, I think that's one that I'm always just very surprised by, especially when I first got there. Is you had so much marketing knowledge, more than marketing practitioners that I knew. So talk to me a bit about that.
Well, it's funny how much things have changed, because when I started this business, the only vehicle to market your services was the Yellow Pages. And a lot of younger people who may be listening or watching this don't even know what the Yellow Pages are. But you would have Yellow Pages ads and whatnot, and Google did not exist. Well, as online search started becoming a thing, I did what I do with my legal cases. I did a deep dive and I started learning and reading everything I can and getting books and going online and reading about Google and other search engines and how to rank and all those things. And I studied it and started building a platform. And a platform includes, one, how do we get this information out there? Well, you got to have a website, and it's got to be responsive to mobile. That was the next stage. And so there's been many steps to that. And a lot of it's about realizing people want to understand what's going on. They need high quality content. So for example, in criminal defense, a lot of people get arrested. They may get released from jail at 3 a.m, or they got arrested at midnight. It's outside, traditional business hours. And they're not just looking for a lawyer, but they want to know, what am I facing? Am I going to jail? What are some possible defenses to my case? I mean, you're in a panic. You want real-time answers to some of these questions. And so part of our strategy, which is both marketing and client service, is kind of hand in hand, is really creating relevant content that people can search to understand, okay, here's what you're facing. Here's some defenses that are common in these cases. Here's kind of a process. And let them know our experience. I mean, if I was a person charged with a crime, I want to know I got a lawyer who has gone to trial and won.
Right.
This isn't something you want somebody learning on the job and whatnot. And it's also highlight some of our success stories, case studies, and whatnot. And so that's come from regular web content to our blog to video that you've helped us create and share our story. And so by getting out of that, in front of that, is obviously beneficial to our business, but it's also gave us a connection with our clients. So people who are in a jam can start learning about who we are, what we maybe can do for you, and how we're going to communicate with you in a modern way and whatnot. And I just got back last week from the ABA Tech Show. This is an event in Chicago I go to every year that brings together lawyers from around the country, but more importantly, legal tech. And it's a phenomenal event because you go to, it's some legal ed. So each day you're going to a couple sessions in the morning. There's 8 tracks that deal with different issues in technology and law. So you're going to kind of educational seminars. Then there's a big hall where you have all these tech providers and consultants showing you what the new stuff is, how you could use it in your practice, how you can, whether it's marketing, serving the client. And that's how we first got into a cloud-based practice management system. The old way is, it started, you would send clients letters and then you would send them email with a PDF. And these are so inefficient. Now, in real time, our clients, I touched on this earlier, we download police reports, they have it the second I have them. It's instantaneous. Well, that's good for the client, it's good for us, it's efficient. And so a lot of times we expunge criminal records all over the state. Well, to do that, we need certain information from the client, not just name, number, and bio, but in the expungement statute, we have to list every address they've lived at since the offense occurred. Well, to do that over the phone, mistakes can happen and all that. We don't want mistakes in our documents. We want them perfect. So now we can send an online form to the client. They click on a button, they can enter that information because they're the ones that know it, get it back to us electronically. We merge it into their document. It leads to, again, effective communication. 2, it helps us keep costs down, so we keep prices reasonable. So sometimes people say, oh gosh, a lawyer far away will cost more. Well, it won't, because our processes keep that cost in line. We're not going to have to travel and whatnot, but a person doesn't want to pay a lawyer to create paper files and have staff stuff envelopes and operate like it's 1980 or 90. You want a modern lawyer who automates and streamlines, because what you want to pay us for is a service. You want to pay us for legal research, for drafting, for working, for developing a strategy to either defend your case or get your records expunged. And so, I always look like this. We owe it to our clients to spend our time seeking to achieve a result, not getting bogged down in old school practices. And so we're in a world of constant learning because technology is changing fast. Every year I go to TechShow, there's something new. There's many things new. And actually just today I've set up appointments with some of the consultants I met working on new things we could do within our practice that's going to help us give better service to our clients.
Wow, there's a lot that I can even probably implement in my own efforts in this business too. I think I really like the whole idea of effective communication. What are the things that I can be doing? I'm going to definitely take from your page. Yeah. So one thing I want to talk about, this is, so I took one law class in university. I had front loaded all my credits while I was in undergrad. And so by the last semester, I had nothing to do. So I started auditing classes, and one of them was a law class. It was Intro to Law. And what was really interesting about that was the intro class. People were going around telling the professor why they were in that class. And, some people like me, I was like, I'm just auditing it. Some people wanted to go into police work. And then a couple wanted to be lawyers. And so one girl says, I want to be a lawyer. And the other girl looks at her who wanted to be a lawyer as well and says, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a prosecutor or what is the opposite of that? What the other
defense attorney?
Or the defense attorney, right? And the other girl responds, well, which one is what? Well, and this girl just very pretentiously says, well, one puts people in jail and one puts criminals on the street. And I thought that was really fascinating. And I really didn't know much about, American law or, the rights of people. And I think this is probably a question a lot of people have, especially when you talk about things like expungement, and helping people who have marijuana charges. Most people who don't have an understanding of American law or just don't understand, that entire field of things, why should you help them out?
Well, I think there's multiple parts of this question that are extremely important. But I want to share a story because it'll enlighten you on how I think about these things. But this has been more than 10 years, probably 15 years ago. I represented a Purdue student, and what had happened is Purdue has a go-kart race at the end of the year and a big festival. There's a lot of drinking going on, and a bunch of these kids were playing beer pong, got very drunk, and over the course of the night, this guy and this girl go up to the bedroom. They both, by all accounts, were inexperienced drinkers, and they both drank an excessive amount of alcohol. And the next morning, they wake up. The girl was partially undressed. The boy's in bed. They both reported they don't remember anything what happened. Blackout drunk. It's a real thing. And so they both kind of have the same story. And so they're both a little disturbed. The girl talks to a friend and says, gosh, if you were drunk, something happened and whatnot. They call the police, and it kind of took a life of its own. And the girl ends up going to get a rape kit, and police come to interview this kid. He's 18, and he goes, meets with them, no lawyer, and the police officer tells him, hey, what happened. He gives the same account. I'm giving you, they're drunk, woke up, and, that's it. He doesn't remember anything. And same thing she said. The officer tells him, well, we're getting a rape kit and so on. And they keep pressuring him. So then he goes back and meets with the girl, and the cop tells the girl, hey, we've done a rape kit. We know that you were sexually assaulted. And whatnot. Well, she has no memory. Well, if a police officer tells you you were sexually assaulted based on a rape kit, you would believe that, would you not? I mean, that's really obvious. And so Purdue expels this kid, and he gets arrested for rape. He's looking at 6 to 20 years. And he hires me. Well, one of the processes I do when I investigate a case, because it always somebody charged with a crime, it sounds awful. It looks bad, sounds bad. There's been a terrible allegation. Is I take the deposition of the witnesses. I want to know. And a deposition's where I can place the state's witnesses under oath and I can question them, because I want to understand what they actually observed, what they're going to say, and all this. Well, one of the first witnesses that I deposed was the SANE nurse. That's the sexual assault nurse that did the rape kit. Well, in the deposition, she testified that there was no evidence there had been any sexual contact. It was inconclusive. There was no sign of assault. Well, this was really disturbing, because you're charged with rape, and the cops had told this victim. Now, I'm going to get to that in a minute, because I didn't know that at the time. So I am interviewing all the witnesses, and there was one witness who had actually looked in that bedroom and whatnot, and it seen him sleeping there, no sexual activity and whatnot. And so I knew there had been a videotaped interview of this girl, and I kept requesting it. I kept asking for the prosecutor's office. They weren't giving it to me, and they have to. So I'm filing motion with the judge. I said, they have not given this to me. I'm getting pretty heated. And for the first time, 3 days before the trial, I get a video that shows the police officer within 48 hours of this incident telling the girl she'd been raped, that they did a rape kit. That was a lie. That wasn't true. I deposed the nurse who did the rape kit under oath, and she just told me there was no evidence. So this whole case is at that point built on a myth, because the girl's not lying. The girl told she didn't remember, when a third party who's in law enforcement told her she got raped. She didn't remember. She didn't even know there had been any sex. And so the prosecutor won't back down. The case goes to trial, goes to a jury trial. And just to put it in perspective for you, this is an 18-year-old kid who's either going to be acquitted or he's going to go to prison for between 6 and 20 years. And this went on for me 9 months. And every day of my life, I'm thinking about this case, the evidence, approaching it, because I truly believed he was innocent. And I by the time we went to trial, I was certain that he was innocent. And we go to trial, and the trial goes very well. And I cross-examine the girl, and to her, I give her a lot of credit, because she didn't lie. She told what she remembers. She didn't remember anything that happened. The officer told her she'd been raped, and that's how she knew. Well, the very last witness was a cop, and I cross-examined him hard and exposed that he told that girl she'd been raped when it was false. He didn't know what was in the rape. He had no idea. And maybe he was well-intentioned because he was young and it was an emotional moment. Maybe it was something evil. I don't know. I don't know. But he told her incorrect information that could alter this kid's life forever. And so it's funny, because the jury's out. Our office is on the top floor of a building across the street from the courthouse. So we're there and waiting for the verdict. And my wife's there, my dad, secretary. And you're so nervous, because at that moment, my client is with his parents at the Holiday Inn. We're just waiting, and he knows, think about this, he's with his mom and dad, and he may leave in chains and may never be with them again for 6 to 20 years. I mean, think what is at stake. And the phone rang a couple times to the office that was just unrelated stuff. Every time the phone rings, your grip with emotion. Is this it? And after about 5 hours, they have a verdict. Well, everybody was going to come see. You know, it was a big trial. There's a lot of media there. It was a very highly publicized trial. The TV stations, everybody. Well, my wife, my dad, my secretary, they just can't go. The stress level is too high. So I let them know, if we walk out together, we've won. And if I walk out alone, you'll know he's in custody. So we get in there, and I'm seated at the table. It's like something out of a movie. It really is. His parents are behind me, and the jury comes in, and you can't really get a read on it. And they hand the judge the form, and when he reads that, you know, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. It still makes me emotional just even telling the story. It's an incredible moment, life-altering moment. And the client is just hugging me and shaking and crying, and his mom and dad, because what they have been through, and the gravity of that moment was just unbelievable. And it was just a wonderful night in my life and his life. But so I want to finish part of this story because it's meaningful for me. So we walk out of the courthouse. Of course, my dad and wife, and everybody's looking out the window, and we walk out with the pump fist, and it was just one of those great moments and whatnot. Later that night, I don't think I went to bed that night because later that night we told my parent we had kept this under wraps because this trial was so big that my wife was pregnant with my first son, and it was, you know, it's just one of those nights. We told my parents that, one of them great nights of joy and all that. But the lesson from this trial is you can't prejudge a situation. We are so quick to pass judgment. Somebody accuses somebody of something, and now they're labeled this. They're a rapist, a burglar, a drunk driver, or whatever they are, without knowing the facts. And it's important to slow down and get the information and learn what is the actual evidence in the case. And it's very, very dangerous to prejudge things. And we've talked a lot about technology and how we serve our clients, but a negative of that, we're in a society now where someone can accuse you of something, can spread it wild, other people jump on of something you didn't do. And that's a very dangerous way to be. And it's a very dangerous thing for society because you can throw these accusations out on a whim or on flimsy evidence or without further investigation and whatnot, and lives can be altered. And so I think when people think of criminal defense, too often they have a picture of what they think someone charged with a crime is or have done, and they've lost sight of our values of the presumption of innocence, you know, and lost sight of the defense lawyer as Perry Mason. And I don't mean that as having special powers in an entertainment sense, but being logical and analytical and examining the evidence and what really makes sense, and bringing that challenge. And that's the passion that I bring as a criminal defense lawyer, that relationship with those clients. And it's funny because this kid was outdoorsy kind of kid and sent me a email and a letter a week later. I lose track of his email or letter because it's about 15 years ago. And people actually still did send some letters. But he got a new hunting dog and he named it Gibson and sent me a picture of it. And it was just, I still have that letter. It's just one of the coolest thank you letters I've ever gotten. And it's probably the most meaningful. I've won a lot of jury trials where people are looking at 100 years in prison and other trials that mattered, you know, one drunk driving trials. But that one always stands out to me because of the relationship with the client, the gravity of what he faced, and that he was truly innocent. And I realized how wrong it could have gone had we not met each other. And I'm not saying no other lawyer can win it, but man, I wanted it. And I believed in the case and worked it hard and exposed the problems. And it was a life-changing moment really for both of us.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal story. Yeah, one thing, I think it's a sad trend, but the entire, I think I've seen this so much now, is just due process being thrown out the window, and everything being tried in the court of public opinion instead of the whole idea of you were presumed innocent until guilty, or until that judgment's been passed on you, and that's really not our place. It's for the jury and the judge to be able to decide once you've gone through that process. Yeah, that's and I think that was probably the biggest shock for me when I first started working for you, just because even for me, I was like, aren't we helping criminals? But then turns out, well, why am I assuming that the other party has good intentions? Why am I assuming benevolence on their part? We're all humans. We're all fallible. We all have intentions and motives, and so that's the whole point of having the system of law that you have in place, and that's the whole reason everything exists there. But that's one of those things, like a learning point, like moment for me coming out of just working with you was, everyone deserves a fair trial. Everyone deserves to be represented well.
They do. And in other cases, I've talked about cases where we've won at trial and people were innocent, but there's also a lot of people who are really good people where things go really wrong one night, things get away from them. And oftentimes, maybe they have a substance abuse problem, or maybe just something triggered in their life that was devastating, and they turn to alcohol or drugs or just out of raw emotion. Something goes really bad, and it's a fleeting moment, and that's not who they are. And these things happen. They happen to all of us in varying degrees, and so somebody has to advocate for that. We can't ever fall into a mentality that, hey, this person did something wrong, let's lock them up. That's a failed policy. It doesn't work. Most people who are charged with criminal offenses are good people who either made a mistake or they have a substance abuse problem or even mental health and whatnot. 99% or more of the people we represent, the problem that they had was rooted in one of those things, substance abuse or a very difficult emotional situation or alcohol or something like that. These are good people that need to get back on track, that things went wrong. And then there's cases that people are legit. I got a case right now, kid at Purdue charged with drugs, and he is innocent. I mean, he's straight out innocent. I've interviewed the witnesses. I will come guns blazing on this, and the prosecutor's office doesn't want to go do their diligence. They expect you to just plead guilty. Well, I don't roll that way. If I have a client who's not guilty, like straight up not guilty, we are not pleading guilty. That is not going to happen. And so, again, this comes back to, it's so important, don't prejudge the situation. And the other thing is, if you have someone who would be guilty, is it somebody accuses you and you just take them out in the yard and shoot them? I've used this analogy before. Is that justice? Or if both sides come guns blazing and all the information is there and 12 people hear the evidence and then we come to an outcome, doesn't that make more sense?
Right.
Because it's not that way everywhere. And sometimes, I see this, police or prosecutor, they're really motivated for a conviction and can get blinded by problems with the case that they really do believe this person is guilty when they file the charge. But new information starts creeping in that starts bringing it into doubt. It's not me versus the prosecutor, that standpoint. This is an innocent person. You've got to get out of that competitive mindset and take a look. And I have a case right now. That's what I'm trying to get the other side to do, because if not, we'll go to trial. That's right. What's going to happen. But it's a scary situation. And so you got to take a step back and be analytical.
Mm-hmm. So, or have there been, well, I'm sure there have been multiple cases with, and you probably have multiple stories about police or police overreach, or the overreach from that side of a case. Is there one that you're able to share?
Well, what really comes to mind when you say that are some of these college kids who, a lot of times these dorms, they'll run a drug dog through the dorm, make a hit, and there's a kid in there. And the police will tell them, they'll basically tell them off the record, hey, you need to consent to search your room. If you do, we might write you a summons, you're going to get charged with a crime. But if you don't, we have to go get a warrant, you're going to jail. Well, first of all, that's illegal, and verbiage is important here. The police cannot tell you to waive your rights to search and seizure, or they will get a warrant. They can tell you they'll try to, but they can't. They can't present the situation as it's you do this or we're getting a warrant. They can attempt to get a warrant. They can share that information, but there's a lot of intimidation to get people to consent to illegal searches. And I understand people hearing that say, "Well, if they found something later, then what's the problem?" Well, it's a gigantic problem because you have a right to privacy. And whatnot. And that's a really fundamental right. If I got pulled over leaving this podcast and somebody wanted to search my car, I would say absolutely not. That's my car. That's my private stuff. And no, you're not searching it. It violates me. Now, is there anything illegal in my car? No. There's I'll just share a gym bag and an umbrella in the trunk, and that's it. But I'm not allowing you to come into my home, come into my private place and violate me. I'm not doing that. And so I think there's a lot of overreach on that. And that's not to say, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, police are bad. A lot of friends that are police. There are a lot of great police officers. I used to play basketball with a bunch of police officers once a week before I got older and my knees went bad. And so I think it's a real mistake to say, hey, all cops are bad, because that's just false. But I also think they probably have a lot of stress in their job, and sometimes that can lead to overreach or just being more aggressive and whatnot. And so we always got to be cautious in these types of situations.
Right. I mean, that makes sense. Okay, so as far as if someone's watching and he's inspired by what you're doing and wants to, be a criminal defense lawyer and own his own law firm, right? Talk to me through, you've been very successful, but generally that comes because there've been a lot of failures, right? It's not like you came out of the gates, 100%. What have been, while becoming a lawyer, getting into the entrepreneurship side of it and growing your business, what have been some of the challenges that you faced that you've had to overcome?
Well, I think like everything else, I mean, there in any business is the initial challenge of getting clients or customers if you're in a different type of vision and all that, and whatnot, and the learning. Now I've done this for 20 some years. I've been in all kinds of trials. I've been in federal cases. I've been in civil cases. I've been this. But in the beginning, I think you just got to dig deep and work. And I think that the real key for me overcoming challenges is just having a mindset of constant learning. Okay? Constant learning in every case. Constant learning and diving deep on the trial rules and how we can use them, diving deep on how to be a better lawyer, diving deep on technology. And I think we're in an era of just constant learning. That is the skill, is constant learning. There may have been a day where you could get out of high school and get a job, or go to college and get a job, and you'd be in that job, and it would stay not the same, but substantially the same, or a lot of the skills you had, it becomes repetitive. And I think those days are just completely over with. And I speak to a lot of college students who want to be lawyers, and they always ask me, this, that, how do you become a lawyer? How do I know if I want to be a lawyer? Should I be a criminal lawyer? And that. You can't know. I mean, how do you know when you're 20? I didn't know I was going to be a corporate transactional lawyer. I'm doing criminal trials. You don't need to know, because I think if you're an intelligent person, you can develop an interest in a lot of different things. And I also think having an interest in a lot of different things, being curious and learning, is crucial to be successful in almost anything. In an example, our firm, if I want to be a great lawyer today and I want to be the best lawyer I can be, I've got to understand technology, because I need to be responsive to my clients, and I got to understand their expectations. They're expecting, if they text a friend, they're going to get right back. We also people just text somebody and only like 1 minute went by. Hey, they're ghosting me. Why didn't anybody text me back? Well, law's the same way. I mean, you're on the gun. You send your lawyer a message. You want to hear back like right away. Well, if we didn't have a cloud-based system, that would be hard to do. But now clients message us, we can get back efficiently. We're learning ways to do that even better. Legal research, and it sounds crazy to say, but artificial intelligence is coming into play where, let's say we have a search and seizure issue. The process for really researching a specific client's case is becoming faster and more efficient. So for example, there's a joke that the answer to any legal question is it depends, because the facts can vary so widely. Every case has nuanced differences. When can the police search, your place or a vehicle or whatever have you? Depends on the facts. Well, used to be in the old school days, you had to do legal research at a legal library. Well, that's been gone for 20 some years. But now it's online legal research. But now the tools to do legal research are becoming more efficient and more sophisticated. And so as you have a fact pattern, you're able to really drill down and find those cases faster and those nuances faster. And I'll give you an example that's a pretty cool story for us. I don't, everyone won't feel the same way, but we had a college student at Valparaiso, and this is another example. We don't have an office near Valparaiso, but they called us. We're kind of known as the college student lawyers statewide because we handle the administrative stuff, the criminal defense. And the situation was this: the RA got word that somebody had marijuana in their dorm room, and they have dorm contracts. This is a civil dorm contract that the university can search your dorm room if, under these circumstances, they think something's wrong or whatever. So they go in there to do a search. They call the police. So the police come, and our eventual client is not home. Roommate's there. So the police know they have to get a search warrant to do that. They got probable cause of a crime to obtain a search warrant to search this girl's dorm. So they have the conversation with the worker from the dorm. They say, oh, no, it's in our contract. We can just search. So rather than a police search, they say, well, we don't need to get a warrant. Why don't you search, because you can do it on your dorm card. We'll just stand here and just happen to be here because you can invite us in. And so a civil employee at the dorm searches the room and finds 6 pounds of marijuana. Now, that's quite a bit. It's a felony level. So ultimately, the girl's arrested, charged with a felony, and we're hired. Well, what's the first issue? Is this search legal? Well, the way we answer that question, here we have a situation, and so we define the question, can a civil person search the room? Can you waive your constitutional right against search and seizure in the dorm contract? And in essence, the police are there. So the dorm worker's acting really at the direction of the police as a quasi step-in law enforcement officer, if you will. So when we research this, there's really it's a unique situation because of the dorm contracts. There's really no Indiana cases, but because of our legal research skills, and this is something, I mentioned Megan Bolt came back, she handled this case and actually did this research, so I got to give her the credit. She found cases in different states that had seen similar issues. And those aren't binding on an Indiana judge, but they're persuasive. And so we found cases in 3 other states. Megan files a motion to suppress as a big time hearing up there in Valpo and all this stuff. Judge takes her involvement. And ultimately we win the case. Charges are completely thrown out based on the legal search. And keep in mind, that's a long way from our office, all that. They hired us because of the service we can provide in doing that. And, I understand some people say, well, gosh, how could you get somebody off that six pounds weed? Well, how could they search the room illegally? They could have applied for a search warrant and made a decision not to do it. And if you let that slide, what are the consequences to all of us?
Right. It's a slippery slope, right?
It sure is. And so there's rules in society, and there's privacy, and it's important to enforce those rules. And with that, again, we had a hearing up there in Valpo, but most of the work was done remotely. Most of the work is done. Legal research, might be done at home, might be done at the office. Wherever it's where you think best. I don't even know where Megan did the research. She might have been home, might have been in the office. Doesn't matter. Client wants somebody who's really going to use technology, do in-depth research. Here we had to go to cases in other states to be persuasive, and then come guns blazing and fight. And whatnot. And it's another example when you first receive the case, it looks bad, but it sure was a terrific outcome.
What's the jail time on 6 pounds of marijuana back? How long ago?
At that time, this has been several years, maybe 6 years. Well, it was maybe less than that, maybe 4.5 years, and whatnot. I think the way they filed it is looking at 2.5 years in a felony.
Okay.
So it's pretty serious stuff.
Have the laws changed? I'm really not on top of marijuana laws and across federal and state.
Yeah, well, they have. I mean, the range of penalties, the whole criminal code changed in 2014, and terminology changed. You used to have, I won't go into real long, but it would be, you had A, B, and C, D felonies. Now it's level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the range of penalties changed. Some of the crimes changed, and which crimes face the bigger penalties and less. So there's been a lot of change, and that's why, again, if you're charged with a crime, you want a criminal defense lawyer. You don't want somebody who's dabbling and whatnot, because there's just too much at stake. And I brought up constant learning. You don't have a new criminal code just 6 years ago. You want somebody who's really diving deep, looking at the nuances, because that's how you get good outcomes. And it kind of leads me to, it's funny, we're talking a lot about technology, but the ABA puts out a practice management magazine, and I get it. And it's all about technology and law and things. But one of the big articles that was in it a month ago, ironically leading up to Tech Show, was how there's a growing lack of lawyers in rural areas, okay? And it makes a lot of sense, a place like Indiana, because there's a lot of counties that are predominantly farming. And if you look at, I grew up in East Central Indiana. When you look at the town, areas like Muncie, Marion, Anderson, and all those rural areas in between, well, the population's decreased dramatically over the last 30 years, because you used to have a lot of the auto manufacturing jobs and the auto suppliers and all that. And when those jobs went to Mexico, so did, the population. And so it's hard for a lot of lawyers to survive in rural areas. So anyway, this article talked about a lawyer that was in Illinois. He got a law school and it was moved by that, wanted to work in a small town, but couldn't make much money. And believe it or not, so this lawyer wins the lottery. I think it was like $100 million. I mean, that's pretty insane. But so he decides he's going to seed a program out of one of the law schools to service rural. And so they get these law school grads going to these small towns, and they give them a little base money, set them up in office, all that stuff. But it's not been successful, because they're not making money. A lot of lawyer, you need population. The amount of legal work there is directly related to population. It makes sense, right? Well, they've not broken the mindset that we talked about when we first got on the podcast. People don't need a lawyer in their town. They need a lawyer who is experienced in servicing their need, who will use technology to communicate. And that's what we've been doing for, 20 years. As the technology have evolved, how are you going to communicate with a client who's 3 miles from your office or 100 miles from your office? For us, it's the exact same way. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're across the street or 3-hour drive. We're going to download the Discovery. I went through the whole process. You're going to police reports when I have them. We're going to communicate via the portal, and we're going to bring it. And so, giving great legal service in rural areas is not about boots on the ground. It's about educating people that you actually do have access to experienced lawyers who only handle criminal cases or only family law or whatever, the same way me as a legal business person have access to a high-tech bookkeeper in Colorado and a web company in Michigan like we use. And so I think, we're still changing the mindset of you don't have to go down the street and hire a general practitioner. Right. And when I say that, it doesn't mean there's not really smart lawyers in small towns. There are. But sometimes there's not the right lawyer for you for this kind of case. And you want those options out there.
Right. Yeah. Not all lawyers are the same.
No.
Yeah. I think that's also probably one misconception I had for a long time. Mm-hmm. Okay. So apart from, being so passionate about what you do in your business, what are the other things, the hobbies and other areas of life that you enjoy kind of dabbling in?
Yeah, well, I'm married. I got 2 boys, and basketball is really our life. When I'm not at work, that kind of consumes almost everything. And I coach basketball for an AAU program, local AAU program, Indiana Ice, which is the top program in this area. And so, most of my weekends, in the winter involve 4 basketball games on Sunday. And my weeks, we got 4 practices I'm coaching. And then as we move into April to August, we're usually playing Saturday and Sunday, and we're going to Indianapolis and playing in big AAU tournaments and Saturday and Sunday with both boys. And so there's a lot of sports, and it's a whole lot of fun. It's certainly busy, but it's something I enjoy a lot. And when we're not doing that, we're usually playing basketball in the driveway. And we're big Pacer fans, so I had Pacer season tickets for many years, and then gave that up because now the kids are playing so much we can't get down there to Indianapolis and whatnot. And it's funny, when I met my wife, she had never been to a basketball game. And our first date was a Purdue game, and it was a culture shock for her. And I still remember because Purdue had Willie Dean, and they had a great night that night. It was very exciting and whatnot. And football also, we're big football people. So sports is just a big part of our lives, with the kids, with watching games and things like that. And it's a lot of fun.
Do you do coaching, right?
Yeah, I coach both teams. So it's a big commitment, but it's something I enjoy quite a bit. And it's certainly a great program, unfortunately, being a great AU program to do that within.
Yeah, tell me about the importance of especially when you're doing, when you are so focused in your business, the importance of being part of the community and kind of helping out, doing coaching. Why do you think that's important?
Well, I think it's important. One is you've got to view yourself as part of a group, and not just the team, but part of the community. And I've done a lot of sponsoring teams, paying for kids to be able to play, but not just playing with them, but, picking them up, working with them. Everybody doesn't have the advantages that I had or my kid has. And I don't mean financial, but just having a dad there to work with them. As a kid, my dad would take me out. We'd be hitting baseballs in the backyard, then we'd be shooting baskets. And I do that for my kids. Everybody doesn't have that. And when you can, help a kid that maybe doesn't have those opportunities, either because of financial, obstacles, or maybe there's not a dad around, or maybe the parent has to work second shift and they have to miss out on a lot of things. So when you can help some of these other kids experience the fun of playing a sport, it's gratifying. And it's not all just about basketball. It's about togetherness, and that's worth a lot.
And how long have you been coaching?
Well, 8 or 9 years. I lose track. It feels like more than that because, in today's world, it's year-round. It's not like when I was a kid, you could play a sport. You could play football 6 weeks and take a couple months off, then play basketball 6 weeks, take a couple months off, then play baseball and goof around and do it. Now, we're probably playing basketball 11 months a year. And so it blends in. I've coached football, basketball, baseball, over those years. And so it's been really a really fun experience.
So I'm assuming you played these sports growing up at a collegiate level, at a high school level?
Yeah, I grew up playing sports and played all through high school. And in high school, I just played basketball. I narrowed it down because that was my sport of choice and had a lot of fun. And in fact, I just took my kids back to see Blackford play at Jay County and whatnot. And it was a full house, and they got to see what it was like when I was a kid. It's still the same. And it was still a full house and whatnot. And so I still keep in touch with that. And it's funny because we'll represent clients there, to get some referrals there and stuff. And I always love going back there because it is my home. Even though I've lived here in Lafayette over 20 some years, that'll always be my home.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think that where you've, again, when I first started working with you, it just blew my mind as just the amount of cases from these small towns and how you've set up your business. You're able to approach all of them. But anyways, the thing that I've noticed is with all people who are in entrepreneurship or have a business they're running is this drive they have. And usually it's very common that they have very competitive spirits, and they've been doing this for a long time. So it seems like very well like you were in the same situation with basketball and playing all the sports, and then transitioning into business. It seems like your work ethics has also transferred over pretty well.
Yeah, and I think you get that from your parents. My parents both worked really hard and set that example for me, so maybe there's a little DNA in there. But it's funny because I will never retire because I love this. Like, I can't imagine building this business and not being a part of it because it's exciting, it's fun. Every day I'm on the phone with real people who they're in a jam and they're very stressed out, and then I start learning about it and setting a strategy, and I start hearing a little bit of relief or confidence in their voice, and then we get at it. We get to work, and there's a fun to it. Other than maybe playing professional sports, which I was not obviously gifted enough to do, being a criminal defense lawyer is right up there in the fun. When you're trying cases and doing things, it's thrilling. It honestly is. And so I think, I've been lucky to have something I'm passionate about, whether it's the sports or, my business and my law practice, that I love it. I mean, it's funny. I love being a criminal defense lawyer probably more than anybody know. I mean, I enjoy it. I would never, ever quit. I hear people, I'm not that old and whatnot. I'm 48 as of yesterday. But I have people that are older than me and they talk about, gosh, I retire this and that. I'm like, retire? This rocks. There's not a chance. I want to keep doing this forever.
That's awesome. That's one of the qualities I've seen of people who have a purpose in their business and are just going at it at 100%. And they just love what they're doing, so they can't imagine ever stopping.
Well, it's funny, when you do something 20 years, I know more now than I ever have. I mean, cumulative knowledge, and I'm learning new stuff all the time. And so, once you master certain things as far as procedural and how to approach things and this, then you start spending a lot of your time on strategy. And that's what makes it just really fun and whatnot. And basketball's the same way. You try to tell kids, you got to master the fundamentals. You got to be able to dribble, shoot, and pass. And then you start getting into game strategy. And that's when it starts being really fun, when you get a collection of kids who are playing together and they're strategic and they're playing as a unit. It's exciting.
Oh yeah, I think there's a lot of things that I've been able to. Well, because of the show, I've been able to be in contact with a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, and that's kind of what I've seen from them is also just this desire to, once they've built these systems, it's just all about how do you now feed the system, and just the strategizing around that. That's kind of what keeps them going.
Yeah, and it's true in all phases of life. I think it's having a mindset of constant improvement.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the real keys that I've had, I try to teach my kids, it's really fun to get good at something, but you got to earn it. And if you do, there's a real joy to it. There's a real joy in continuing to get better, continuing to learn, continuing to take challenge, and that's what makes it fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love the stories. I think that I could see having you back on like 10, 50 times just because of the amount of stories you have. So for those people listening, how do they get in contact with you? How, if someone's interested in knowing what you do or someone needs your services?
Yeah. You can always find us on the web if you search Gibson Law Office, or you go to www.bbgibson.com. And that's www.bbgibson.com. There's a contact us. You can reach out to us. The numbers to all 4 of our offices across the state are on there. And so if you ever have a need, we always talk to people once for free so we can learn about your situation, and you can learn if we're maybe the right law office to serve you. So like I said, reach out to us. It's always free to get a consult, and we'll see if it's a match.
Awesome. Well, Brett, thank you for coming on. I think there's so many cool things that I learned just from interviewing you, and so I'm excited for people to see this.
Well, thanks so much.
I want to thank you for checking out the Storyventure experience. I'm really excited to sit down with more people. If you think you have a cool story to tell and want to be on the podcast, go to growwithstory.com/podcast and fill out your contact information. I am really excited to talk to more people, tell more incredible stories. So let's keep this going.